All right. Tomlin talk changes, and we got some changes. I can barely even keep a straight face while saying that. We did get some changes over the last day or so, just not the ones that we want. And we'll talk about that as this stream goes on. But first, let's go over some housekeeping with the injuries and whatnot. Obviously, we got a big one with Kenny Pickett, suffered that knee injury second half of the Texans game, and it's looking like he has a chance to go this week. Saying that his injury is only a bone bruise. Let me pull up this tweet real quick. All right, here it is. Mike Garofalo. Actually, this isn't the most recent one. Let me try to find. I have the most recent one up here. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Well, I'll read this. Initial testing, Kenny Pickett didn't point to an ACL injury. We knew this yesterday. But then the more recent update that we have on Kenny is that he's doing fine. As you can see on the bottom of this tweet, initial test said his knee injury show only a bone bruise and could return for the Steelers in week 5. I think that's good news. Some people think that's bad news. Those that don't believe in Kenny Pickett particularly. Yeah, I think you should want him to go out there, no matter what side of the fence you are on with Kenny Pickett. Because if you're like me, you still believe that Kenny Pickett is going to turn this thing around and get things right, then yeah, he is our quarterback one. He's the one you want leading this ship. If you don't believe in him, don't you want to see more of that? Because what is a QB1? What is a franchise quarterback? A guy that can overcome some adversity, right? So, yeah, there's been some adversity these first 3 or 4 weeks in the season. Kenny Pickett's still young. We don't have a full report card out there of him. We don't have a ton of tape out there on him. He basically, I think just last game, has played a full rookie season. Wasn't that 17 starts? So, yes, we should want to see more of the guy that we picked in the first round of 2021. So, even the people that think that Kenny ain't it or whatnot, don't you want to make sure he's not it and see more games and see more experience of him before you just write him off over 17 starts? So, yeah, I think it's a good thing. Pickett has a chance to play. Hopefully he does. Hopefully he does. And I think no matter what side of the fence you are on with Pickett, you should want to see him. I think you should, because we want to see more experience. We want to see more of what he's got. Because what if he turns this around, man? Slow start, first 3 or 4 weeks. If he turns it around, I think that shows he's got some of that mental fortitude, some of that stuff that you're looking for in a franchise quarterback. I think it's there. We got to see it last regular season, but he's got to prove it again. The league is all about what have you done for me lately? Because we could talk about Joe Burrow, what he's done his first 3 seasons, lead the Bengals to the Super Bowl, lead the Bengals to the AFC Championship last year and lose to the Chiefs and whatnot. So, he has a really good track record in this league. But what have you done for me lately? Right now, he's the worst quarterback in the AFC North. If he continues to do that, he will just be a bad quarterback for this season, right? Now, obviously, he could maybe turn it around for seasons to come and whatnot. But, yeah, it's all about the here and now. And hopefully Pickett can turn it around. That's what I'm hoping for. The next injury, we got Pat Freiermuth. He is expected to miss about 2 weeks, I guess potentially 3, after suffering a hamstring injury against the Texans. Pittsburgh has a week 6 bye and hope that Freiermuth can return week 8. That is the hope. So, yeah, he'll just only miss this week if this report is accurate and everything goes as planned. Only this week against the Ravens, bye week, and then he will be back week 8, LA Rams. That'll be the first game that we have after the break. I'm wondering, do we still need to pick up a tight end? Even if Muth in this injury is more short-term than long-term, you see how devastating an injury can be for our tight end room. Just one guy goes down. All we have is Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward. And Connor Hayward isn't really a tight end by nature. He's more of a Swiss Army knife, versatile guy. He can play tight end, but he could also play halfback. He could do some fullback stuff, slot receiver. You motion him all around the place. That's more his game as opposed to just being a traditional tight end. The only guy that's a traditional tight end on the roster is Darnell Washington. Now, we did move up Rodney Williams from practice squad. I'll get into some of these signings and whatnot in a bit here. And those are the changes I was referring to. We did make a few signings. We did make a few practice squad moves. But again, not the big change. Not the big change everyone was looking for. But back to the thought about bringing in a tight end. Why not? Why not? I had a crazy idea today that I posted out on Twitter. Should we trade for Kyle Pitts? Would that kill us? Kyle Pitts on the low. He's still trying to recover from his surgery. Hasn't been right this year. Falcons don't know how to use him. I wonder if we offered him a 4th rounder if we could get Kyle Pitts in here. Now, I know we probably want a guy that can block better, but I think Kyle Pitts could be a huge asset for the middle of the field, and that's what we've been looking for on offense. How do we attack the middle of the field? Because that's just something we've been lacking in very, very much. But if you get Kyle Pitts for like a 4th rounder, I say no-brainer. No-brainer, right? You still have him on the rest of his rookie deal for this year and next year, then you got to worry about a 5th-year option down the line. But if you could just bring in an additional talented asset to this team, especially in the tight end room, and we're a little bit weak, that's my crazy take I'm just throwing out there. Why not? Why not? But instead, we, again, called up Rodney Williams from practice squad. Before we get into those signings and some of those moves, let me just check in with you guys. What's popping? What's popping? What's popping? Martin 2 Clean says fire Tomlin. We're going to be talking about Tomlin today because, as you can see from the headline for today's show, the caption for today's show is Tomlin the issue. That's what we're going to be talking about here in a bit. RNM 8, Fire Mac Canada. Yeah, we're talking about him too. That goes back to some of the Tomlin stuff. Ooh, this is an interesting little conspiracy here. Lord Dre 10 says Mike Tomlin cannot fire people. I guess that's something we'll never really know for sure. It's between him and Rooney. I think if Tomlin really wants to hire or fire a guy, I think he has a lot to say. I'll put it to you that way. He wanted to bring in Flores last year. We got Brian Flores. So if he really wanted to fire Matt Canada, we could fire Matt Canada. That's my take. Shake That Milton says Tomlin's not the issue. Just stop it. We'll talk about it. Predator Wrath, who gives a bleep about the winning record streak? It's something. It's a cool stat, but at the same time, it's not that cool if you live in Pittsburgh and root for the Steelers, because what we try to attain is championships and big winning and division titles and all that. So it's cool from like a big, broad standpoint. Like, it's impressive. There are a lot of teams and franchises that can't pull that off. Tomlin's been in the league for how long? 16 years. This is going on his 17th year. For not to have a losing season, that's something. But at the same time, here, it's definitely an overrated stat. It's a catch-22. I like this one. Lord Dre 10, trade our first for Patrick Surtain II. I would do that in a heartbeat right now. Absolutely. It might take more than that to get him, but yes, I would bring in Surtain II. Bump up JPJ's playing time. And just try to mix some things up on this defense, particularly in the secondary. All right, let me get to these changes. Tomlin talk changes. And we got him, guys. We got him. Not only did he do a press conference yesterday talking about the changes, but we did get to see the Steelers make some transactions. And does that count as changes? That counts as something. No, I already talked about bringing up Rodney Williams. No, this is actually a Tomlin quote. I'm botching this up today. My production work is like C-. It's like Canada level right now. I'm going to get to that tweet. First, let's get into the moves. We signed an O lineman. I should have worked on his name pronunciation before this show. I'm gonna take a swing at this. Obena Easy, offensive lineman. He was with the Detroit Lions. Came into the league a couple years ago. Mainly a practice squad guy. He's an offensive tackle though, and that goes hand in hand with Dan Moore being out with a knee injury. I don't know if we're gonna call him up that move can be made between now and Sunday. But yeah, he's just there for added offensive tackle depth, but he hasn't really done anything in the league up to this point. The intriguing one, though, is Denzel Mims. Signing him to the practice squad, he has a chance, depending if we get some more splash on offense or not in these upcoming weeks, he has a chance to be called up to the active 53. And he's intriguing because we all know he was a former second-round pick, 2-3 years ago in the draft. We had him on our radar for the Steelers. I liked a bunch of his tape coming out of Baylor. Ultimately, we went with Claypool in the second round. Jets end up taking Denzel Mims. And Mims, according to Jets fans, they feel like he was done a disservice by the Jets organization and the Jets offense with them having Zach Wilson, changing of head coaches and whatnot. Because I think the head coach that drafted Mims got fired after the first year. And he just was really never able to catch on in New York. He gets not cut. He gets traded to the Lions this offseason. It was for a late pick, and one of the reports out there was that the Steelers were actually interested. I think it was between the Steelers and the Patriots and the Lions. Those were the three teams that were interested in him. The Lions gave up enough compensation to get him. He got hurt at Lions camp or in the preseason or whatnot, and they ended up releasing him, and he's just been rehabbing, trying to get right from the injury, and it looks like now he is at least available to play. We have him stashed on the practice squad. So it's intriguing because he's a talent. We have Frisman Jackson as our wide receivers coach who coached Mims in college at Baylor. So there's a connection there. So who knows how that plays out? I just like seeing a move like that just because we bring in a talented guy. And I think it sends a message to some of the receivers on the active 53 like, hey, get your game up, or we got another guy that's looking to make some waves on the practice squad here and has second-round talent, legitimate second-round talent. Now, I don't know if this will ultimately end up being like an Anthony Miller situation. He doesn't see the field. He just continues to get buried on the depth chart, and we never really hear from him. But this is completely low risk, potential medium to high reward. And then you see we made some corollary moves with releasing Greg Bell, Jalen Camp, and Jacob Copeland. So there's that. The other moves were promoting Rodney Williams from practice squad to active roster. Okay, we have an extra tight end on the team now. We got officially 3 tight ends to make up for the Muth injury and signed Des Fitzpatrick back to the team after we waived him yesterday, and also an additional tight end in Noah Gindorf. So not much there. Those were the big changes I guess Tomlin was talking about. But he addressed that in his press conference yesterday, what he meant by changes and whatnot. So I'm sorry I have the first quote that he said Sunday immediately after the game cut off here, but he says, hell yeah, we got to make some changes. That was an ugly product we put out there today, so we're not going to do the same things and hope for a different outcome. Fast forward to yesterday when he did this press conference in front of the media. Says, I was actually talking about the physicality component or the lack thereof, and it just didn't take long for me to realize practice attire early in the year. So the full quote of what he's talking about there on Tuesday is this. Mike Tomlin on those changes. I was talking about the physicality component or lack thereof, and it didn't take long for me to realize practice attire early in the year. So he's talking about getting back into pads, but also some matchup-related things. Man, we're open to dividing the labor up more finely in effort to get better plays, to put people in circumstances, blah, 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 blah. Does it really matter what the rest of this says? Because this is just really Mike Tomlin speak, coach speak, cliche speak. We just, we got to make necessary adjustments. We got to play harder. We got to do this. We got to game plan better. All that. Yeah. The things you should be always doing on a week in and week out basis. I just feel numb to it a little bit at this point. I think a lot of people are. A lot of people are. We knew this was going to happen. Even though he said, hell yeah, we got to make changes. We knew there weren't going to be any real big changes, real sweeping changes, things that would actually shake things up, get people on alert. I just feel like it's been too much of the same over these last couple seasons. Too much of the same, where we need a shakeup. Something. The offense isn't it, man. You look at the stats over these last 3 years. You look at the stats over the 4 weeks of this season in 2023. It just ain't it. It's not enough. No matter how you want to slice it. Now, we did have that good stretch. I've talked about it ad nauseum last year from the bye all the way to week 18. I thought our offense got better. We found our identity, winning games, this and that. But outside of that stretch, and some would argue the offense wasn't even good enough there. It was more about the defense and us just winning games ugly. And in today's modern NFL, everything's catered toward the offense. So we should be having at least a little bit of a higher advantage on the offensive side of the ball. No, we can't be playing like we're stuck in 2005, 2006. Now, it got us to a point last year where we almost made the playoffs. We turned the season around. But is that a good strategy to win games late into the season when you're talking playoffs or whatnot? But also just the fact we're getting blown out in all these random games. That has been way too much of a commonplace over the last 3 seasons. I had a stat. I wanted to pull it up for last stream and completely forgot. The Alex Kozora stat, I'm sure some of you guys have seen it on Twitter over the last day or so. He pulls up a really interesting stat. And, like, we know what our eyes are seeing. It feels like these blowouts are happening way too much. But here's the facts and figures behind all that. Since 2021, the Steelers have lost 6 games by 22-plus points. That's tied with the Giants for the most in football. From 98 to 2020, so what's that? My math's right. Is that 22 years, 23 years? Pittsburgh only lost 6 such games. So over a 23-year span, we've only lost 6 games by 22-plus points. But then from 2021 to 2023, these last 2.5 years, that's happened 6 times as well. Like, that's insane. That's an insane stat. 6 times over a 23-year stretch and also 6 times in a 2.5-year stretch. I guess not even 2.5 years. We're only 4 weeks into 2023. And it's happened twice in 2023. Look at this. 41-10 loss to the Bengals, 36-10 loss to the Chiefs, 38-3 loss to the Bills, 35-13 loss to the Eagles, 30-7 loss to the Niners, and a 30-6 loss to the Texans. It's ridiculous. It's becoming too much of the standard. Okay, this is I guess you guys can hear that. Here's that national alert that they were talking about. This is early. This happened at 2:18. I thought they said it was going to happen at 2:20. So that was a little early. But you guys got to hear my phone going off for that national emergency test. It's legit. It happened. There you go. It's on record right there. But anyway, back to it. I think these random blowouts where we're coming out flat, uninspired, unprepared, lacking physicality, being outcoached, it's become too much of a commonplace recently. And just the fact that our offense, how do I want to put this? Our offense isn't doing enough. Our offense being not in the modern era has been too much of a commonplace as well. So back to the headline, the caption for today's show. Is Tomlin the issue for all of this? Promise changes. All we got was some practice squad signings and some moves between the 53-man roster and the practice squad. Those are the only changes we got. That's what Tomlin promised. Those were the changes we got. No big changes. Is he the main issue when it comes down to it? Is he the issue with all this? Is he the Steelers' biggest problem? He's not the problem. He's not the issue. And you're the head coach. You're the leader of all this, right? But for me, I do think he could be part of the solution as well. Because let's be real. I don't think it would be smart to fire Tomlin or move on from Tomlin right now, middle of the season. It just wouldn't. Because what would happen? What would be the Steeler way if we got rid of Tomlin right now? We would promote Matt Canada. We would promote Terrell Austin to head coach. Does anyone want that? No, not at all. My thing is this. I was saying this all offseason, going into 2023. Tomlin gets some leeway, man. He does. He has had a very solid track record as a head coach in the NFL as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. He has a good track record. Now, do we wish it could have been better over recent seasons, over the past decade? For sure. But not all of our postseason failures have been on Tomlin. We've had some devastating injuries to very, very key players. You could talk about Shazier. You could talk about Le'Veon Bell. You could talk about Antonio Brown. Big Ben hurting his shoulder, that AC joint sprain, but then he came out the next week against the Broncos, no fly zone, throws for 300. And we put up an amazing fight in that game. We were actually winning in that game in the fourth quarter until Fitzgerald Toussaint fumbled it. Is Fitzgerald Toussaint fumbling the ball in that divisional game on Tomlin? Now, the one that I can really point to and say, yeah, that this wasn't it. Like, we got to look to Tomlin on this loss when you're talking playoff games. I'd say the Jaguars, because that was a very similar performance to what we've been seeing in some of these blowouts. But Big Ben and the offense were able to come back. The defense was never able to get their footing in that game. Never. But the Jaguars came out. Weren't they beating us by like 20 points? It was double-digit points like in the first quarter. It was ridiculous. Team looked flat. Like, that's inexcusable. We gave a valiant effort at the comeback, but that was one playoff loss that I looked to and said, man, I think that was a coaching thing, man. We can't be coming out that flat. We're the favorites. We're at home. That was a 13-3 season. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. And over these last however many years, Big Ben gets hurt. We have to deal with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. If anything, I'd give a thumbs up for Tomlin there. Like, that was a great effort to come back after we were 1-3, 1-4 to start the season. We have Duck and Mason at quarterback. We get it to 8-5, but then ultimately missed the playoffs at 8-8. Yeah, those quarterbacks just weren't good. I thought it was a good coaching job by Tomlin. And then Big Ben comes back 2020, go 11-0. Disappointing loss in the playoffs. Last season with Big Ben, go 9-7. That's where all this stuff's been starting. That's where all this like blowout losses, team looks completely lost out there. The run defense was awful in 2020. That's where a bunch of this started, and we've been seeing it play out over these last 2.5 years. But Tomlin's track record, what he's done in the past, I think at least gives him some leeway here. Being here for 16 seasons, having success, no losing seasons. He gets this year. I don't think it would be smart to fire him right now. Not at all. But this does come down to him. Like what we're witnessing out there, not only this year, but 2022, 2021, this does come down to him because Big Ben retires. You get your quarterback. You get all your personnel in free agency, all the draft picks or whatnot. Like, these are your guys. These are also your coordinators, right? Matt Canada, you picked him. This is your guy from Maryland. You wanted to incorporate his college scheme, this new age offense that he's going to bring. And it's been more of a Stone Age offense in reality. And then on defense, yeah, Terrell Austin. You got him too. We lose Keith Butler. You pick Terrell Austin. This is the first time that that these coaches that are under Tomlin are his guys. In the past, it's been Todd Haley. I felt like that was picked by Rooney, Randy Figner. It could be argued that was Ben's guy. Even before him, Bruce Arians. That was just the next guy up after Wisenhunt left. Dick LeBeau. That was a dude under Cowher. So, yeah, this is the first time. Like, Tomlin, this is your thing right now. This is you. And you're the head guy. So, yes, the blame does come down to him. But he could be part of the solution, as I said, because it's not like we haven't seen turnarounds in season before. I already talked about Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph season. You could talk about last year, another one where we don't have Big Ben out there, and it is Tomlin and a bunch of young guys, a bunch of unproven guys on off. Not unproven, but a little bit lower on the pool when you're talking about experience, right? We got a bunch of young guys on offense. I think we were one of the youngest, if not the youngest, like offense in terms of starters last year. And we turned it around. We got it to 9-8, almost made the playoffs. So Tomlin has shown he is capable of doing that. Now, do we think he's going to do it again this year? I don't doubt it, but we need to get past the just turn it around, go to 9-8, turn it around, go 9-8, get bounced in the wild card. Because going back to the intro, like, we're here for championships, man. We're here for big winning. We need serious change. So hopefully this change Tomlin's talking about does get us going in a serious direction here. Is anyone hopeful? Because our track record with Canada, everything that's been on tape with Canada and this Steelers team, you could even talk defense too. Defense hasn't been up to par over these 3-4 weeks. The new personnel ain't what we thought with Pat P. Levi Wallace has regressed a little bit. Obviously, we're missing Cam Hayward. So, yeah, there's things on defense that need work too. Inside linebackers had a down game last week against the Texans. But so far, they've been all right. Yeah. I could see why just whatever Tomlin has done and said in terms of changes this week doesn't get anyone hopeful that a serious change can happen. Again, yes, we could get to 9-8. We could get back into the playoff mix, right? But are we going to have what it takes to do some serious winning? So this also comes down to Tomlin. You can make a serious move. And this is what I'm calling for. Matt Canada, man. Matt Canada. What are we waiting for? Because I'm just wondering, is the team starting to tune Matt Canada out? Are they starting to tune the coaches out? Because everything feels like talk. When we're talking about, we got to do this, we got to do that, changes need to be made, we got to get more serious, we got to be more fit. It's just all talk. It's all talk. What are we doing on the field? Where's the actions being taken? And none of that has happened yet. And to be fair, I don't know if it would be the smartest thing to do to fire Canada right now. We got a bye after this week, and maybe that's the time. Maybe that's the smart time to do it. But we need a shakeup. We need something to change. It feels like things are getting stale. Something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. Is it on the players? Sure. Is it on Tomlin? Yeah, we just talked about that. Is it on Canada? Yeah, defensive coordinator Terrell Austin. It's on everyone. It's on everyone. But what has been the constant over these last 3 years? It's been the offense not performing the way they should. It's been the offense for 75 to 80% of the time stinking up the joint. And who's been here for the offense in those 3 years? Matt Canada. We've had a change in personnel in each of these last 3 seasons, from Ben to Kenny to Mitch, just all, those 3 quarterbacks. I messed that up. Ben to Mitch to Kenny. Najee, we threw in a Jalen Warren. We got a new receiver in George Pickens. We got new O-line. We got new personnel, but the offense has, for the most part, been the same. Lackluster, uninspiring, predictable, like all the adjectives you want to use. The stats are there to back it up as well, that we haven't been good compared to the rest of the NFL. So when are we going to get that shakeup? So I think that comes down to a leader too. Like, you got to acknowledge, like, this is in your capabilities. This is within your power to make this type of change. Like, you got to step back and look. Like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. So yes, Tomlin has been the issue. I do think he can be part of the solution. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good leader. But maybe some of that loyalty that he has to Canada is what's costing him. If he wants to go down with the ship like that, I wouldn't advise it. I think we can be a winning team with Canada at coordinator, but is just a winning team, get to 9-8, no losing record, or just getting to the playoffs. Is that going to be good enough? Now, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully the offense comes out. I'm praying I'm wrong. Hopefully the offense comes out and goes for 400 yards, Kenny, 300, 3 touchdowns. We got all these great schemes. The defense is on their heels. They don't know what hit them. But what have we seen from the Matt Canada tenure that tells you that that's going to happen? We literally haven't seen that yet. We haven't. Some want to maybe blame Kenny. Maybe some want to blame Mitch. Canada doesn't have the quarterbacks, right? He doesn't have the quarterback to do it. Well, let's see. Let's find out, because right now there's a big question mark about that fact. Because Canada has been the one that's been here with 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different ones. And if Ben didn't bail him out in Ben's final season with all those game-winning drives, like, that could have even been worse than what it was. Let's find out if it's Pickett or Canada. Let's find out. That's what I'm saying. But ultimately, I do think we are going to end up being 3-2. We do beat the Ravens this week. Is it going to be ugly? It could be an ugly win. It absolutely could be an ugly win. We don't turn the ball over. We slug it out on offense, run the ball. Almost looks a little bit like it did last year. And then we play good defense. Lamar throws us some picks, maybe has a fumble or two, because that's what he has traditionally done against the Steelers. You can look up the stats there. We got his number for the most part. So, yeah, home game, backs up against the wall. All this negativity is flying all over the place. I'm sure we're going to be motivated. I'm sure we're going to be a lot more physical. But then does it repeat the cycle after that? And I think that's the thing a lot of us are concerned about. If we don't get, like, real change, is it just going to be more of the same? All right, we get a cool win here, 3-2, but then are we going to get another game like we saw against the Texans again? Are we going to get more lackluster performance by the offense again? And so far, that feels like that's the trend. That is what the standard is right now. Like, if we miss the playoffs this year, we have a poor finish to the season, then yes, I think you can have serious conversations about Tomlin, firing him, moving on, whatever, right? Hot seat. But right now, it's not the time. I think you do give that guy the benefit of the doubt for all he's done for the organization, and just being a solid coach, just flat out. By objective measures, he is a good head coach. He definitely is. And this is going on another reason why you keep him too. This is his second season without Big Ben. First year, which was last year, was considered our rebuild, no? And that's what got everyone excited about 2023. And our rebuild, we almost made the playoffs. We turned the season around, right? All these young players on offense. And then for us to come out like this and look like we've regressed, it's like mind-blowing. It's like shocking. And it does. It goes to Tomlin. It goes to Tomlin. He's the head guy. Not on him, but you're the one leading this, right? So that's where I'm at with all this. That's where I'm at with it. Wait, Richard Hunt says Deke doesn't even believe what he's saying. Immediately looks down when he says the Steelers win. I do think we're going to win this week. I'll put some dollars on the money line. I will. I'll put my money where my mouth is. Yeah, what are you guys saying? I'm gonna peace out of here in a little bit. What are you guys saying about all this? Tyler Noah brings up some context for last year. Says second half of the year was the easy teams, but this year our schedule is way easier. So exactly, we should be winning games. We should be winning games. Our second half last year was on the easier side. I will admit that. We played teams like the Falcons, the Colts. Who else? Falcons, Colts, Saints. They were having a down year last year. We did beat decent teams, though. We did beat the Ravens. They almost beat the Bengals in the playoffs, and that was with Tyler Huntley. So they weren't a bad team. It's just how we're winning some of these games. Now, I think Ravens games, you look from a historical standpoint, those could be ugly. Like, I don't think you should look down on us beating the Ravens in a low-scoring manner by any stretch. But we haven't had games where we're winning in a big manner, right? We haven't had anything else to point to. It's just more like, oh, I guess this is how we win games, right? This is how we do it. How sustainable is that? in 2023? It's a legit question. Absolutely is. Both last Steel says we should be winning games. This is a better team than last year. On paper, it is. On paper, it is. Our offensive line is better than last year. Receivers, better than last year. Unfortunately, Deontay got hurt. Defense, better than last year. But on the field, that has not been the case. It has not been the case. At least through these first 4 weeks. On paper, it is better than last year. That's why everyone was so excited about this season. And we still can be excited. We still can be. Because it's early. But again, with the pieces we have in place, with the coaches we have in place, a.k.a. Matt Canada, the schemes we have in place, the game planning we have in place right now, it doesn't give you much hope that we could hit the next level. It doesn't. So I do think a serious change could be in order. Just so we could see, man. Just so we can see if it's Canada or if it's not. And I think that would spark the team too. I've talked about it. I talked about it on last stream. Hockey teams, whenever they do it. People can get energized. Sometimes it's not all on the coach, but just like just a shakeup, a change of scenery in the room, a change of chemistry, something can give a new perspective on things, and you could start getting some new momentum and whatnot. So yeah, that's my take on it. That's it, man. Big shout out to you guys for stopping by, and I will be back post game against the Ravens. And I expect this to be 3-2, and we'll see. We'll see. Because I was gonna say, man, like with how bad this week was in terms of the negative talk, the negativity and whatnot. I mean, if we're 3-2 on top of the AFC North, I'm gonna be coming in here in a much cheerier mood, even if we still have Matt Canada. Even if there are no big changes or whatnot. If we're 3-2 on top of the AFC North, I'm sorry, I'm going to be excited. I'm sorry, I will be. But those questions may still remain. Unless, like I said, we come out and go for 505 touchdowns on offense. I pray to God that happens. I pray to God that happens. What's the likelihood? Yeah. But, all right, I'm out of here. Stay chilling, everyone. Here we go, Steelers.